Ladies and gentlemen, this is internet personality Vangelus, and I'm here to tell you about the hunt for the Decepticons! In particular, right now, Brimstone. Did you know that I really love the Revenge of the Fallen Scouts? Did you know that I really love the small extension in there into the Nest Alliance Scouts? Well, did you know that I also really love the Hunt for the Decepticon Scouts? Do you see a pattern emerging here, ladies and gentlemen? Brimstone is part of a fine lineage of scout-sized motorcycles that began to take the world by storm, during the Unicron trilogy, but really began to take the world by storm in Revenge of the Fall. Okay, well, basically there's some really cool scout motorcycles out there. And Brimstone takes things up a little bit by being a choppa. A lot of scout motorcycles right now tend to be a little bit Japanese, and going with my very minor knowledge of motorcycles, this guy does not look super Japanese. He's got this incredible, just like, green flames on blue, which you tell someone that in text and they're gonna be like, what are you talking about? Are you insane? You show them this and they're like, well, actually, they might not like it. Well, Brimstone will kill them. Anyway, I think it looks great. He does suffer a little bit with this unpainted Games Workshop gray plastic, but what are you gonna do? That seems to be the approximation for silver. Also, if you want, you can use the 3mm weapons clip system and Sky Stalker's axes to make this into not just a flaming chopper, but a flaming rabbit chopper. Okay, well, that wasn't a good example, but we'll get to that later. He's also got a kickstand, which is a little bit sideways and flat, but, you know, it's a kickstand. It does what it's supposed to do. Anyway, as I said, this dude's from a fine lineage, and when I say fine lineage, I mean there's a bunch of them, and he fits in with them really nicely, in my opinion. But is that all there is to this guy? Is he just a bike with a pretty chassis? No. He transforms! User-friendly and intuitive as it is, Brimstone's transformation does have a specific order to things. In short, you have to work his arms in order to free up space for his waist to rotate along the rear wheel's axis. There is a pleasant amount of locking and solidity to his arms and shoulders, which helps define his very odd physical aesthetic. The tiny little hands are difficult to work with, though, unless you've got the fingernails or fingernail proxies to pry them out. Regardless, the overall process was much cleaner than I had expected. Let it never be said that Brimstone does not ooze with at least an ounce of character. Just get a look at this insane head sculpt. This is what really drew me to the guy, outside of being a motorcycle, was this visage of a beady, red-eyed, psychopathic death skull with, like, grill teeth. I don't know, there's something about this that really works for me. He's much like many of the other Revenge of the Fallen and onwards Scout toys. This dude's head sculpt is a billion times of personality that he may never even have in any kind of fiction, yet it's still evoked so heavily through the visage you see before you. And given the strange nature of his robot mode, this guy actually has a fairly solid aesthetic, all things considered. I mean, he has funny-looking, barely posable, chickenish legs made out of his engine block. He's got stick arms and, like, saw blades on his hands, and I thought for a while these were his hands, and I didn't really mind that, but he's actually got tiny little black hands here as well. Splitting up the wheel like this is a marvelous choice. It gives the guy, much like his head sculpt, just so much personality in the very image of his body. Another little touch I enjoy is that he's got one of his wheels literally as a central gear inside his torso. I don't know why I like that, but it adds to the uniqueness that Brimstone carries with him. Posability-wise, as I said, the legs, there's a joint here. It's not really a knee or an ankle joint, it's just a joint. And it's the only one outside of ball-jointed hips. That's a bit of a disappointment. On the bright side, though, this guy has stick arms, but he's got not just a shoulder ball, he's got this additional swivel joint that you can use to have him cross his arms if you so choose. He's got an elbow joint on the stick, and not only that, it's like a double-jointed elbow, because the hinge is the same width as the entire rod that makes up his limb. This bit swivels around. You can kind of take that as a very pseudo wrist joint if you're being generous. This is another surprise. If you undo this little back clip, he also has a waist joint, which among Scout toys can be a little bit rarer right now. and it adds even more character to this guy, and you can always just move this clip up to whatever position you put him in, and suddenly this guy's able to get into all kinds of manic poses, in part also because of his ball-jointed head, which lets him look up and around all over the place. It doesn't let him tilt very well, but the combination of all these joints makes for a dude that really gets across a lot of poses, and a lot more poses than most bike transformers are usually able to, outside of the Knockout and Redeco family, or at least Scout bike transformers. And now that we're all always looking for it, I've gone hunting on this guy to try to find places where the 3mm clip weapon system might work, and I believe I found it up here on his handlebar rod bits. It's a very solid connection up there, so he can have just this crazy, like, death-dealing axe saw blade spinning my arm around kind of... Come on, you can see it. You can all see it, can't you? I did think that this rod on his chest would be another mounting point for the clip system. Unfortunately, it's just a little bit too thin, so stuff just kind of dangles there. But if you wanted to, you could hang guns off there, or axes in this case. On his rod forearms themselves, there's a lot of sculpted detail here which can get in the way of the clip system, but it's just a little bit too thick with all the extra sculpting. It kind of clips in there, but it's not very comforting. It feels more like I'm stressing plastic. But if you really want to, you can stuff things into there. And if you find other clip points, you know, post in the comments. These weapon clip system interactions, as far as I know, are not pointed out in any instructions, and it's really just up to us to discover them. Brimstone, regardless of the clip system, is a dead solid scout. As I've said, I love the Scout lineup that's come out of the live-action movies, and it's continuing really solidly into the Yellow Box Transformers of 2010. Look at him and try to tell me you can't get at least an iota of what this dude is about. This dude is about having buzzsaws on his hands and giving you manic looks while he speeds around in his chopper mode. Throw in a buddy like Sky Stalker and you've got a manic pair of melee, well, maybe masochists? That alliteration kind of fell apart. Manglers! There we go. And hey, if you stock up on some of the Knockout Redecos, you can even build them a little bit of a biker gang to chill out with them. This guy looks like a lot of fun. I hope that someday we can get media to go with some of these scouts, but if not, you know, this looks like a small force of destruction in some far-off Nevada desert town, where they've only got a sheriff, and what can he do about these hooligans who are attacking his town, and they're coming after the crops, they're tipping cows, milk trucks, they're just flipping them over. Who's gonna stop the manic rule of Brimstone? Who, by the way, I highly recommend, and would only say that you shouldn't buy if you're utterly put off by his unique aesthetics, although I'd say they're part of the draw of the guy. But who? Who will do something about these flipped-over milk and express delivery vans? Who's gonna stop the evil reign of the scout-sized motorcycle transformers and their inexplicable stealth bomber drone friend? Who's gonna stop this, ladies and gentlemen? Well, this has been internet personality Vangelus, and I think I know who's gonna stop him. And by the way, I hope that the video was helpful to you in some way. But it's time for the Sheriff of the Road to arrive.